Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indimuli. As always, how hot is the coffee where you are?
And I'm usually Stanley Nyaringita. It's a wonderful Wednesday. I'm usually Stanley Nyaringita. Leo tunasema jina
mara mbili. Sio bad.
Ni juu tunapika leo. And I'm very happy about that. Leo ni ile siku ya Tasty Wednesday, but before that, we get into matters relationships, and we're asking you, why are women more open and to be kept on the side as a secret? We'll be having two ladies and a gentleman for that conversation. Stick around for that.
I tell you some of the conversations you have. But looking at the top trends on Twitter, Larry Madowo is a top trend this morning, and then JKI follows right behind. And it's because people have been talking about the state of our airport and the lack of shades, that when you go there, probably you're going to, you're catching a flight, and then you're dropped somewhere outside the terminal. There are no shades. So if it's raining, you're just rained on.
So you catch a flight in a cold.
Something like that. But then someone noted something, that whatever is happening at our airport is not really unique. Other airports are having trouble as well.
Oh, yes.
One of them is the Dubai airport.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about it.
Dubai, apparently, so the flights arriving into Dubai airport, the world's busiest for the international travel, were temporarily diverted on Tuesday evening to other locations after the city-state was hit by major flooding following a whole heavy rainfall. So gathers, the rainfall was about 4.7 inches. It's about 120 millimeters of rain yesterday, which is a typical yearly average in the desert nation.
Wow, look at that, look at that. Just watching that Boeing, or is it an Airbus, running through the water. It's like a boat. Have you ever seen this? A plane on water. That's very interesting.
Oh, yes.
All right, a very quick look at the headlines this morning. And we do have the dailies. Yes, we start off with the Daily Nation. Ping pong as deaths spike. That's a big headline on the Daily Nation this morning. Matters to do with a health crisis. On the standard education school fee, why MPs oppose e-citizen way.
On to People Daily, TSA on the spot of 149 billion cash shillings insurance cover.
Mgomo, masuala ya madaktari mochari zimefurika. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo.
Masuala ya biashara pale. Get this, 500 wealthy Kenyans, among me, fall off dollar millionaires list.
You're no longer a millionaire.
I'm no longer a millionaire. Times are tough now. But when you contrast this, business dailies, and we'll get to that, the business dailies front page and yesterday's The Star, they seem to be two different
Something
things.
different.
Yes.
Let's take a look at what The Star is headlining with today. Wage bill crisis. COB calls for hiring freeze. Yes, the wage bill conference ends today. We'll be talking about that later. Crossover into Tanzania. Mental health, matters health, headlining in Tanzania. CAG report reveals areas of concern. And if we could spend a moment here, Controller and Auditor General have revealed 12 shortcomings in the provision of mental health services in the country, including inadequate community-level diagnosis and financial resources.
And it's quite rare to see health matters on the front page of The Citizen. So today is a whole of the day. On Mwananchi, vipaumbele 7 vya TAMISEMI, shilingi trilioni.
And I'll tell you what exactly they're talking about there. But in Uganda, they talk about banks on edge of a government plan to tax loans. Matters taxation in Uganda now big news. Yes. Remember yesterday we were talking about on the new vision, the 58% payee proposal in the tax amendment laws there. Now they're talking about taxing loans.
Proposed tax.
So they're in that period there. And finally, new vision still in Uganda, EFRIS, what traders agreed on with URA. URA is the equivalent of KRA. So they're still talking about matters taxation in Uganda. That's big business. So if at all you're doing business in Uganda, just know that they're also discussing matters tax. It's not just here in Kenya.
Oh yes, oh yes.
All right, let's take a quick look at traffic now.
Oh yes.
And a quick look in Nairobi and the major tributaries into the city center. It's looking green generally. But yes, let me start off with Mombasa Road because I can see a bit of yellow, but it's on your way outside, probably from the airport towards Mombasa. But let's go further back from Lolongo. If you're driving down from Lolongo all the way past Gateway Mall, past the Hilton Garden Inn. So far so good, even beyond Imara. Next Gen Mall, a bit of a snarl up there, not really a snarl up, it's a bit busy just before you get to Capital Center, probably because of that entry into the expressway. But after that, everything is new into town. You can see patches of yellow, but that's along Uhuru Highway. Maybe some traffic there. But Mombasa Road into town is clean as we speak right now. Let's take a look at Langata Road all the way from Galleria Mall down to Uhuru Gardens. This is a tributary I'm looking at, and it's green. Across beyond Wilson Airport, past the Mbagathi roundabout, onto the Nyayo Stadium place. Nothing so much to report there. Everything is green so far. So if you're coming from the direction of Karen or Mlolongo into town at this time, you are safe. Even, what do you call it, Mbagathi Way is clear at this time. A quick look at Ngong Road. As far back as Ngong Racecourse and Golf Park, everything is smooth up to Junction. And technology inajaribu kuleta maneno hapa. Up to Junction, beyond Junction, all the way past Prestige Plaza. So far so good, all the way up to the City Mortuary roundabout, nothing there to report. And if you decide to go down Kenyatta Avenue into town, it is okay so far. So that's Ngong Road, and let's cross over to the other side of town. But before we get there, let's take a look at Wayaki Way, and we go as far back as Mountain View Mall into town. Nothing much to report. Bits and pieces of yellow there, meaning matatus are busy on the road picking passengers to town. Past ABC Place, past Westlands, Villa Rosa and the National Museum. Into town, actually, everything is green so far. So getting into town from the direction of Wayaki Way, you are safe at this time. Let's cross over to the other major tributaries into town, and that's Thika Road. From Kasarani all the way, okay, let me just go as far back as Githurai probably. And from Githurai, yes, nothing much to report. Everything is smooth so far, all the way past Garden City Mall, past the GSU headquarters, KCA University, Survey, the Utali Drift, onto the Pangani interchange. And even the Pangani interchange as we speak right now is not as busy as it usually is around this time. So around there, Mathari Mental Hospital, the Pangani interchange where Kiambu Road and Thika Road meet, and beyond, Moranga Road is looking clear, and also Forest Road too. So in as far as that is concerned, everything is clear. So is Kiambu Road all the way from the bypass, all the way past Quickmart Ndigwa, Ridgeways Baptist, Ridgeways Mall, all the way DCI, and that is clear. Finally, let's take a look at Jogoo Road. And as far as Jogoo Road is concerned, yes, we have it from this interchange that heads into Manyanja Road, down Makadara, a bit of yellow here and there, and that is very normal along Jogoo Road at this time because of the matatus picking passengers heading towards town. So nothing to report apart from a few patches of yellow here and there. Yes, a bit of a snarl up around just before you get to the City Stadium roundabout. That's the only thing you can say. There may be a slowdown there, but beyond that, nothing much. Okay, a bit of red. This is a Machakos bus station. That's Landis Road into town. A bit of a snarl up there, right opposite Machakos bus station. This is Muthurwa area. But after that, yes, a bit of, the town is getting busy at this time. But yes, so far so good in as far as traffic is concerned. So let's take a look at the weather now. And where did you have this weather?
There it is.
Can't find it.
On the crop page.
Okay.
Najua as 60-year-old.
Maneno ya leo tulikuwa tumesema tunaangalia Nakuru. Okay.
Yes, and a couple of other
Let's take
cities,
a look at the weather. We start off with my home county of Nakuru. 16 degrees Celsius as we speak. It feels like 16 degrees Celsius. It promises to be a bit sunny later in the day as you pick up the day from 7, 8, 9, 10 towards lunch hour. After that, there'll be some cloud cover and probably some instances of rains and showers here and there between 3 and 4. After that, a bit of sunshine, and then 40% chances of rain later on in the evening. That is in Nakuru. Let's finally take a look at Nairobi. In Nairobi, 17 degrees Celsius as we speak. Mostly cloudy this day. A bit cloudy in the morning. Instances of sunlight all the way up until 2 p.m. also. But then after that, there'll be chances of rain. So do expect the afternoon hours from 3 p.m. towards the evening. Do expect some showers, and that's 50% up to 60% possibility of rain. So if at all you'll be leaving work around 5, you better have your umbrella with you. And finally, Kisumu. Oh, Kisumu is quite hot this morning, 21 degrees Celsius. More or less the same. Sunny intervals throughout the morning, but then once you get to the afternoon, chances of rain and thunderstorm. By 8 p.m., 70% chance of rain. So if at all you're in Kisumu, yes, you will definitely need your umbrella much later in the afternoon.
Oh, yes.
So yes, that's the weather this morning.
Most definitely. Remember, over the weekend, the Kenya Meteorological Department saying that this rains for this week will be ending at around Thursday. So that's tomorrow. So again, maybe by tomorrow, the whole chances of it raining might be ending. Let's give you what to expect as of today. And first off, on a news diary, matters EACC into the courts and appearing, matters corruption. So former Murang'a governor, Mwangi Wairie is expected to appear before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission today. The former county boss requested the postponement of his appearance yesterday, and he had been summoned on matters, allegations of conflict of interest in awarding publicity tenders by the county government that dates back all the way to the year 2014, 2015, as well as financial year 2015-2016. Other matters on the next page. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is expected to host a high-level development meeting with the UN agencies in Kenya. The official residence in Karen will be giving you all that. This meeting starts at around 7 a.m. So we'll be following up on what will be transpiring. On to the next page, and the Prisons Reforms Working Group will today be hosting a symposium that will bring together 100 distinguished delegates representing entities within the prison academia and the civil society. And to the next page, something that will really affect you and me. The Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs will have a joint sitting with the Senate Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee today. This meeting began yesterday on the actualization of the National Dialogue Committee NADCO report with a specific focus on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2024. Conversation that, is too late into the making. This conversation should have really started and being implemented on the Boundaries Commission of the same. Into matters health now. Today is World Hemophilia Day, and the Kenya Hemophilia Association will be joining the Ministry, as well as the Ministry of Health, will be joining the Global Bleeding Disorders community to mark this day today. So the day has been themed Equitable Access for All, recognizing all bleeding disorders. And finally, into matters the doctor's strike. So the Employment and Labour Court is set to make a ruling today on the doctor's strike following the lapse of the 14 days granted for the dialogue. This even as the KMPDU, the Union for Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, is set to also address journalists on the same. So the whole grandstanding between the doctors as well as the government continues. We wait to see what the Employment and Labour Court will be saying today and what kind of effect that will be having. We'll be simplifying that for you and telling you all that in our subsequent bulletins. And that takes us to our newspaper review, taking a look at what is expected.
We start off with the Daily Nation matters health crisis featuring on the front page prominently. They call it ping pong as deaths spike. That's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Paying with their lives, hundreds of Kenyans are dying at home or in private hospitals and village dispensaries as a weeks-long grandstanding between doctors, governors and the government over the posting and remuneration of interns escalates. The story is extensively covered on pages 4, 5 and 6, just painting a picture of just how bad the situation is. And yes, we do have different headlines. On page 4, They talk about young man's slow and painful death as doctors watched. And page 5, governors, medics' demands will affect county functions if executed. And finally, bodies pile up in morgues as doctors' strike continues. Those are the headlines in as far as this main discussion is concerned. We do have a small quote there by Anne Waiguru, the chairperson of the Council of Governors, and she says, in the event that the national government agrees to implement the CBA, this will have a ripple effect on all civil servants' basic pay. Curiously, this is coming at a time when we're also discussing the national wage bill, that conference which ends today. And they say that hospital mortuaries across the country report increase in number of bodies as governors warn on the CBA. Other stories featuring on the front page just below the main headline. They talk about why MPs are reluctant to move into swanky office. Last week we were talking about this new building that MPs are supposed to move into. You know, they actually built an underpass just to avoid normal Kenyans from parliament buildings just to go to their offices and back. But now they're saying the office haikai mzuri sana.
The offices are too small, they're poorly ventilated, they have no natural lighting, and the lifts are slow.
Really, is this when they're realizing this? This building has been under construction for how many years? And it's just right next to them. Surely, someone should have gone in and checked and said, okay, fine, hii vile mnaendelea hatutaingia. But to wait until it's... Anyway. So does that mean on Friday the president won't? I think he'll still go ahead and open it. I don't know if they still have a chance to say they can't, but interesting. Matters Drama Festival. Schools and colleges drama festival winners to perform for President Ruto tomorrow. That story is on page 2. And at this point, I'd like to congratulate my alma mater, the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, the great powerhouse. They emerged victorious in quite a number of categories. But then again, it's something normal that they do, something normal that we do. Those people who went to the great Kenya Institute of Mass Communication back in the day. You know, I was in that college before you were born. Anyway, more discussions here. House team pokes holes in directive for parents to pay school fees through e-citizen. It's another big discussion there on the front page. I remember that directive that everyone, including those paying for school fees, have to pay through the single pay bill number 2222. Now, MPs are saying, this one is not really working, and poking holes into that directive. What will happen? We shall wait and see. One more highlight on the front page above, just below the title of the Daily. How police officer used car in his custody to obtain 300,000 shilling loan. This is a story that I remember last time. There's a police boss from Karen who was arrested for selling a vehicle that was under her custody. Now this other one is using it to get a loan. Yes, on the back page, reference to that building that they're calling faulty. MPs, they say the floor work is poor, the lighting system is not working, while many things have not been done. They also say it is just a mess. The offices are too small and they are squeezed and there is no privacy. Why do you need a... I tell you, they need privacy as members of parliament. They already have an underpass to the office, but they need more privacy. What exactly is the privacy for?
Wow.
And the very last headline here, report on NADCO bills out next week with IEBC matter given priority. And you remember there are issues around the NADCO report. 9 bills already prepared for it, and also a pronouncement on the same by the courts. We have to wait to see what will happen. And that's the Daily Nation today.
Right. There's a whole headline that matters Arsenal, but...
We shall talk about Arsenal more tomorrow after the match, so that we're sure what will be happening. As we speak right now, Barcelona has been eliminated from the UEFA Champions League. So yes, it is a bit dicey to talk about the future.
Well, let's talk about the present and why MPs oppose e-citizen way, that is on school fees. And they say President Ruto's plan to have school fees channeled through a single e-citizen pay bill number, a move already suspended by court, suffered a second blow after MPs appeared to reject it, saying it will disrupt school fees, school finances basically. That's on page 4. And it is a whole hurdle on the same. And there's a quote there by the PS Citizen Services, Julius Bitok, on page 4. He says, this money does not remain at the Treasury or the e-citizen account. We have a citizen called the T+ system that allows it go through Treasury but automatically settled to the school account. Back to the front page, or the very top, Kibunji, others charged in ghost workers scandal. And that is Kibunji's, Mzalendo Kibunji, the former National Museums of Kenya Director General. Not so Mzalendo of him. On page 11, MPs reject Ruto's envoy, pick for DRC. Here he only appeared with a driving license and a Form 4 certificate.
Sad state of affairs.
Into matters, the business pages, why wage bill keeps going up. Most definitely. And we'll also be telling you on that subsequent bulletins, just following up on that. The final day, curtains come down today on that meeting in Bomas of Kenya. And Arsenal's tough test in Munich. That is on the sports pages. But to the very left, Mukuni Moi girls top in drama feat, and the little-known Mukuni High School upsets giants this year's drama and film festival at Moi Girls. Nairobi and Buruburu girls shine in other categories. Into quotes, Blower's court holds Mau Mau roadworks. Well, the back page is the wounded Arsenal, but because Feda said we shelf and we calm this conversation until tomorrow, sawa sawa.
All right, let's talk about dollar millionaires in Kenya now. These are an exclusive club of very wealthy Kenyans. And the headline on the front page of the Business Daily reads this way: 500 wealthy Kenyans, I know Nyaringita said is one of them, fall off dollar millionaires list. Some of us have always been way below even the shilling millionaire list. 500 wealthy Kenyans fall off dollar millionaires list. These are the super rich. They've been hit by instability in property market, NSC. 2023 marked a second successive decline, according to this report. And they say, this is how they value them: 500 Kenyans fell off the exclusive list of dollar millionaires in 2023 as a weak shilling cut the valuation of their liquid investable wealth in dollar terms. So the number of dollar millionaires in Kenya in 2023 is 7,200, and that's a drop from 7,700. All right. Matters privatization. State puts up 2 billion shilling stake in iconic Hilton Hotel for sale. This is iconic Hilton Hotel in the Nairobi Business District is up for sale, charting a new path for the beleaguered establishment, which has remained shut and unused since closing shop over a year ago. And one wonders, what will that building be turned to? If at all the new owner decides, I don't want a hotel here, what else can you convert it? Because it's impossible to bring it down.
Oh, yes.
Okay, not impossible, probably improbable. But hey. On the ticker, public servants take home 1.25 trillion shillings as allowances in 3 years. Matters wage bill.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And ideas just popped up, and you're asking, what can they use? When you take a look at the distance from Hilton to the new Bunge offices.
That should be the new office.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Well, they can use that distance. They can probably build another underpass or just
issues of
stop.
privacy. You know, they don't have like a bridge from that place all the way to Parliament buildings like they have for this new one. So it's going to be dicey there. Meanwhile, KRA's tax avoiding multinationals. And finally, NSC investor wealth shrinks by 127 billion shillings on profit taking. That's the front page of the Business Daily.
Right. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Sema pale masuala ya madaktari mgomo, mochari zimefurika. Masuala ya huzuni, uchunguzi wetu wabaini kuwa uchunguzi wa gazeti hili wabaini kuwa idadi ya miili katika mochari imeongezeka maradufu. Familia zasimulia jinsi wapendwa wao walivyokufa kutokana na mgomo uliopo. Mengine katika ukurasa wa 3. Aidha, wadokeza kuwa nchi yapoteza maelfu ya raia ambao wangepona iwapo mgomo wa madaktari ulioingia wiki ya 4 ungezuiwa. Kwingineko, pale chini, UEFA, Man City, Arsenal majaribuni. Kwingineko pale chini, taarifa ambayo kwa sasa nchi imeonekana kutongelelea sana masuala ya Makenzi kule Kilifi. pale Shakahola. Mackenzie kusota jela muda mrefu. Mshukiwa mkuu katika mauaji ya Shakahola kula maharagwe hadi kesi ikamilike. Mengine katika ukurasa wa 4. Pale juu, Orengo apigwa faini ya shilingi milioni 1. Gavana wa Siaya amriwa amlipe mama wa Ongwae kwa kumthalilisha. Kwingineko ni kuwa tulivyokuwa tunawanyonga wanawake. Muuaji sugu ataka ahurumiwe ndipo aeleze namna walivyotekeleza unyama wao. Naweza angazia hayo katika ukurasa wa 2. Lakini hiyo niyo taarifa ya Taifa Leo.
We only have like 2 minutes to go, so let's take a quick look at the People Daily. Teacher Service Commission on the spot over 149 billion shilling insurance cover. That's the big headline on the front page. Matters teachers insurance cover. Another story, a highlight featuring on the front page, 19 held after 290 million shilling Equity Bank fraud. These are some of the stories that banks don't want to feature on the front page. Another one, sack CS Nahumicha, demand women MPs. Yes, lawmakers accuse embattled Health Cabinet Secretary of incompetence in handling ongoing strike by doctors. And yes, that's the front page of the People Daily. And finally, on the Star, before we take a look at the cartoons, wage bill crisis, COB calls for hiring freeze. Some counties spend up to 75% of revenue in paying employees' salaries. That's the big discussion on the front page of the Star. And yes, down there, city traders decry lack of fresh air as roads made inaccessible due to garbage. And yes, we'll have one of the MCAs from Nairobi telling us more about this. Yes, time for us to take a look at the cartoons today. On page 12 of the Standard, matters caricature. And this is one of those patriotic moments. The cartoon on page, it's about the Boston Marathon, which Helen Obiri emerged victorious. This is on page 12 of the Standard. So they have a podium. All 3 winners, the one who won gold, silver, and bronze, are Kenyans. And so they're all singing the national anthem. One says, Kenya istahili heshima. Definitely. On page 17 of the Daily Nation, matters KOTU and that attempt to limit the terms of union leaders. And a picture of one of those union leaders, renowned union leaders, Francis Atwoli, as a tree, depicted there as a very strong tree, but a number of axes have tried to cut it down and broken. And it's called KOTU Gardens, No Term Limits. And that's
finally behind you
on the Daily Nation.
On People Daily, on page 10, Stanos take the UDA and the NC, whoever is sort of probably trying not to this UDA not to go forward, saying, am I inside or outside?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And you know, when you were younger, we used to play with the wheelbarrows. For us who grew up in the rural area, this is what you used to do with the wheelbarrows.
Oh, yes.
You come on this other side, then you ride it all the way to the farm and back. And that's exactly what my DVD is doing there. And he's asking, am I inside or outside? That's a cartoon on the People Daily. This morning, yes.
Oh, yes.
Now, we'll discuss this and a lot more with my panelists on State of the Nation. Robert Alai, MCA Kilelesho, will be in studio. Anol Maliba, Strategic Communications Advisor, UDA Party, as well as Joyce Wamahio, economist and governance expert. You can be part of that conversation online through X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya.
Right. Take a short break. We'll be right back.
47, you're watching Morning Cafe with me, Fred Indemuli. Time for us to take a look at the state of the nation. This morning, we're privileged to have with us Robert Alai, MCA Kileleshwa Ward. Karibu sana. And alongside Alai, we do have Maliba Arnold, Strategic Communications Advisor, UDA Party. Karibu sana. We do expect Joyce Omahio, economist and governance expert, to be joining the panel shortly. We'll introduce her once that happens. But now that we have the two of you gentlemen here, let me ask you questions that are particular to where you come from. And probably, when Alai, on the front page of the Star this morning, and my director kindly assist me with the front page of the Star, we have an image there. City traders decrying lack of fresh air as roads made inaccessible. And we have a montage of photos of waste dumped along sections that are considered markets, and some are roads. And I know some of these areas are not really under your jurisdiction, but generally under the Nairobi city jurisdiction. And probably, because I've seen quite a number of complaints online, and I would like to get clarification on the situation when it comes to waste collection and management.
I think, thank you, Fred. Thank you also for the invite. We have a very big challenge in the management of the city, and I think it starts from the governor, right, going down. You know, the issue of waste collection has been a very thorny issue for a very long time. And what you're seeing, witnessing now, is because of the kind of cartels we have created in that sector. The garbage collectors, I think they have not been paid for some time. And so this is not something which is very surprising, seeing what is happening now. I think it's very intentional on the part of the collectors. I think the issue of the pending bills is such a thorny issue. But also the governor needs to take charge. You know, the city county is divided into two: the legislative arm, which I belong to, and the executive arm, which is supposed to be doing what is highlighted there. I really feel for the traders. I know the situation is made worse also because of the rain, but I believe that the problem arises because of the lack of commitment to pay the pending bills by the governor. And so this might be an issue of them dumping the garbage back of the streets when they're not paid.
And probably just for clarification's sake, because we previously, and those who lived in the city years back, we knew that the county government or the city county was able to carry out its own garbage collection with in-house staff. Are we saying that it's now fully privatized?
No, you know, it's not fully privatized, but it's outsourced to a great deal. I think 70 to 80% outsourced. And the fact that it's outsourced, it means also we created a very big group of cartels. You know, it's such a serious matter that these people, they charge a lot for garbage collection. And there has not been any governance structure also put in place in that sector to ensure that, you know, the city is paying for the right collection. Sometimes you find even the garbage collectors carry stones to the Dandora garbage dump, because it's measured on weight. It is not measured on actual collection. Mm-hmm. It's measured on weight of the truck. So you go to Dandora, you weigh your truck empty, then you come back with a garbage or whatever you're carrying inside there, and sometimes just stones, which is half full there, and so it has been an issue of, did you really collect? Because the people who have been mandated to collect in some sections say they collected, but you don't see the garbage going away.
And it's a problem that has persisted for quite a while. It's not an issue that is unique to this current administration. Are we saying that waste management, waste collection and management in Nairobi is such a big problem that it cannot be managed by any single county government?
It can be managed, but you know, the commitment to manage it must be there. Because what I see is that the lack of commitment to manage it by the successive governors. If you have a governor who is sitting there and is not taking, because this is something which you have to take personally. This is a very powerful cartel. If you're paying somebody, a group, 2 billion, 3 billion, it's a lot of money, and sometimes for no work done.
Okay.
And this is creating a very serious cartel which can do anything for that money. Okay. So I think the governor has to take a personal initiative, work with the law enforcers, work with the DCI, work with the police, work with the Ministry of Environment, ensure that these people are not operating a criminal network. Okay. But if the governor is not willing to bite the bullet, then we have a mess which, you know, every time you delay to pay, then they go and pour all the garbage in the street. And they believe you can do them nothing.
All right. This story is captured on the front page of the Star. The waste collection and management crisis now affecting some trading areas, especially in downtown Nairobi. Now over to you, Bwana Maliba. A lot is happening within UDA with the elections, and just give us an update of where you are. We've seen quite a number of murmurs here and there, some groups not really comfortable with the expected elections. So where are we in as far as the UDA grassroots elections are concerned?
Perhaps you will allow me to just chip in into what Mheshimiwa has done. I'm a city resident and of course a person with interest in how the city is also run. One of the challenges I think the county government has had, I think, ever since Kidero left, has been that there's been very little commitment to planning. You know, initially, I think I was among the few people who actually were part and parcel of the development of the Nairobi Integrated Urban Master Plan. Normally, it's actually shortened as NEO Plan. And you realize that lots of the challenges we do have today were actually put up into that 20-year master plan. And it had generally 6 sectors, of course, number 1 being environment, number 2 being land use and human settlement, then number 3, urban economy, transport, infrastructure, governance and institutional arrangements. It's worked out well when you talk about the railway city, well articulated there. Actually, what NMS did a lot of times was that they went to the new plan, plucked a lot of the projects that we'd actually listed out there. And the new plan was actually supported by JICA and the Japanese, working so hard to ensure that it works out well for the county. But over time, of course, successive regimes have come in and they are never very much committed to that. So, and of course, you're asking Mheshimiwa and you said it might not be under his jurisdiction. I think he's among the few MCAs whom you see on the ground. And his ward specifically has got lots of planning problems. You've seen guys doing excavations without getting authorization. There's all manner of drama in that particular ward. And of course, for MCAs, of course, they are members of parliament, by the way. They don't do bylaws. They do laws nowadays, unlike councillors. So when it comes to oversight, of course, it cuts across. So he is actually able to speak for Nairobi when it comes to oversight. Because when he does oversight, he doesn't do for Kileleshwa alone. When he does legislation, there is no law if he were to push through that would go to the county assembly and then specifically applies to his people alone. It will apply to everybody else. So apart from the first function of representation where he primarily represents the people of Kileleshwa, he will also, of course, represent the bigger picture. So I think partly I think the issue of commitment, and I don't know how we will do away with cartels, because when we were young in the city, we heard of cartels. I'm so sure at that particular time they were old people. Most of them have died on, but of course, power bows are. They
gave birth to new cartels.
They always renew themselves. But cartels do not work without support from within. So City Hall, in and of itself, sometimes looks like a cartel. As in, before we talk about cartels from outside, those cartels are very much City Hall themselves. So I don't know what we are going to do, because then when you have got an executive that is blind to what the legislature is doing, or a legislature that feels quite helpless, because the executive is quite aloof and the fights and everything else, the people then that suffer are actually those that are supposed to get services. So you look at the quality of air in Nairobi, and it's really not healthy for us to actually live in this particular setting. So not just for traders, there are places where bad odor is actually the order of the day. There are slums, and it has got thousands and thousands of people who live there, who really have come to get used to that particular setting. And we move on and act like there is nothing really. I think there is need for a little bit of push. Not so much, sure, but I think the only salvation we have is actually in the assembly. If the assembly were to push much enough,
But
they will have the paper with them.
But before you even come to UDA, because I know that's where you were going next, now that we're talking about the city, and allow me to welcome Joyce Wamahiu, economist and governance expert, to this conversation. Karibu sana. We're just talking about the problems the city is facing right now. On the front page of the Star, we have this montage of the kind of garbage, waste and waste dumped even in market areas and on roads, and we're just discussing the issues there. We're lucky to have MCA Robert Alai with us. And there's so many problems even beyond waste management. Now that we have this season of rains, the issue of drainage that people have talked about for eons is yet to be resolved. The airport has issues. Okay, fine, it may not be under the county government, but so many things appear to be going wrong in the city. You must be a resident of the city or maybe its surrounding areas. And I'd want you to comment on that as well before I allow Alai to finalize on that.
Thank you so much, Idimuli. It is a holistic issue that, that portrays the kind of leadership and commitment we have in terms of service delivery within the county. Nairobi City is primarily the best ever. But if this is the definition of the best ever, then we have issues. One, the health hazard. There's a lot of poor air, bad air in all over. I don't know whether Mheshimiwa here, the Department of Health in the docket of the county government want to address that issue, because this is not an issue of 1 month, 2 months, or even during this time that we have the rainy season. This has been a perennial issue, even say prior to the county to the governor who is here. We've had major issues even way back when it was still the City Commission. I think it's a deliberate effort for people who are in office who are not willing to address that issue. Because we have other counties and other countries where high population in those cities is higher than what we have in Nairobi. Yet, waste management have been dealt with properly and diligently. Perhaps with Mheshimiwa here, he should tell us, why do we have lack of representation addressing those issues of waste management? We've had huge budgets that have been pushed to those departments. Where have that money gone? Because last session when we had the Sonko government, we saw trucks. We saw the Jogo Road site where we have the dumping of the solid waste management. What's the progress in that department? Is it that this lack of commitment to address that issue? Is it that we have no commitment at all? Is it that we are crossing a blind eye and dealing with that issue? Rastre Idimuli. A county government of Nairobi is, I do not want to preempt that discussion. We've had this week on Monday when the IG was asked to arrest the governor of Nairobi County and march him to the Senate. Article 96 and Article 125 deals with the reasons why he was being called. Do we have a governor who is not willing, who is an absent governor who is not willing to address not only the issue of the waste management, but other services within the country? This is a discussion and this is a question that should be addressed either by this session or even other sessions out there. Thank you. And
Bonalai, we may talk a lot about the governor and his failure, the failure of the executive, but the assembly must take some of this blame. You cannot be excluded from this. There's a role you play in oversight and holding the executive to account.
Yes, you know, I agree. I totally agree with you. And if you check the session we had at the Senate there, where we were appearing before the Public Accounts Committee as members of the Public Accounts Committee from the Nairobi County Assembly, you saw a very heated session we had with the committee chairman and other members who saw a proper mismanagement of Nairobi, not only by the executive, but also by the assembly leadership led by the speaker and the clerk. So I think it's something, I think the main problem is that the devolved units need a little bit of autonomy from the political parties. What I can tell you has been a key problem is that you get elected as an MCA in Nairobi, especially the MCAs. I think the MPs and the senators, they have the problem, but not to the extent where we have the MCAs. Then you find that you cannot even choose your own leadership. So the leadership don't feel that they need to work with you. They work for the party, and sometimes it's not the party, it's the party leader.
Mm-hmm. Is that the problem we face?
That's it, yeah. So, they tell you, mimi ni ODM, barua yangu inatoka kwa baba.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a majority leader, or I'm a minority leader, I don't need to listen to you. 75% of the UDM MCAs in Nairobi want the minority leader out. Almost a similar number of ODM MCAs wanted the majority leader out. But because they don't have a say, the standing order says the party will write a letter. It is the party which can write a letter, can choose the leadership of the party in the assembly. So they don't feel beholden there. Okay. You have a situation where the speaker has not sat with the audit committee since he came to power. He doesn't even know that the auditors have been coming to check the accounts. He went to the Senate and said that that's not his responsibility. That's the responsibility of the clerk. He is the CEO. There's no way that can be. You work in a government institution. You need to ask yourself, even if the auditors have not called in, you need to ask yourself, I need to be accountable. When are we doing the financial year reports? Have we sat down with the management committee, the audit committee, and the team to ensure that there's a reporting? So I think it's a breakdown of leadership because of the MCAs become powerless at some point.
And listening to you, it appears you was a descriptive of a totally dysfunctional system, not just at the executive level, also at the county assembly level. And there have been questions, Maliba, about whether Nairobi can be managed in this devolved system of governance and whether or not we need to get a totally different entity to run the city of Nairobi.
So, just responding to that, I needed to build up to what she had said and what he's actually bringing up. But I will start from the place of, first of all, let me deal with the leadership and then the management, then I'll respond to that. So at the leadership level, unless the governor is a little bit innovative, and that cuts across all counties, not just Nairobi, that if you do not get a governor who is innovative, somebody who's out there to really work and goes over and above what is doable, then the governor ends up just playing two roles. Number one, he becomes the manager of pending bills, and Alai has spoken to the issue of pending bills. So the governor just becomes the manager of pending bills. And function number two, then, he becomes the paymaster general. So you get the 15% from the national government, and then you are here juggling the pending bills and then paying salaries. A lot of governors in this country are actually doing that. So they have no way of actually raising resources over and above what they get from the national government. Their own source revenue continues to shrink literally everywhere. No one really wants to work hard because Nairobi will bring money. When we speak about Nairobi, I'm talking about the national government. So a lot of governors have just ended up being managers of pending bills and the paymaster generals. They pay salaries, and that's where they stop. So after 3-4 months, the people get tired with them. MCAs are also pushing. And then now you see a lot of the strife that you see around here. For the assemblies, he brings in the issue of management, of course, and here that is a disease that cuts across political parties. That sometimes what is working for the people on the ground and what is working in an assembly does not probably make sense to a party, or the way it's managed is that if I'm getting my appointment from elsewhere, then what are you going to tell me in the assembly? Literally nothing. But for me, this is an issue I've actually been on it ever since I was part and parcel of the wage bill conference, the very first one in 2014. That I think MCAs are not paid properly to do oversight. I think with a basic salary of about, I think it's 7 or 89,000, and then even if you work so hard, you might not go beyond 200,000 shillings. You are oversighting somebody who actually has got billions, and some of those people actually receive bribes. A single bribe could be an MCA's salary for probably 4 or 5 months. Just a simple bribe when you are dealing with a building somewhere or an approval elsewhere. So it becomes an issue where there is an imbalance in power. You know, when we were talking about checks and balances and having the legislative arm both at national and county level, it was supposed to play check and balance. But here there is an imbalance. It's not a matter of academic capacity. If you look at most of MCAs, they are well educated. We've got PhDs in county assemblies. Some of the very clever people are actually in county assemblies. So that particular level of imbalance, we can go through. And I'm thinking that when people sit at Bomas and talk, they also need to see the impact. You know, policies have got impact. Specifically, the wage bill policy around county assemblies. That in itself has got a huge impact on how oversight is done, and that oversight speaks to the same things around the resources that we are managing, because if oversight is not sufficiently done, you're going to have that particular problem where MCAs are then beholden either to the governor or to some other force outside there, that the cartels that we are talking about here. So you could actually find MCAs who then are actually in the pockets of some business people in whatever assembly it is. So from whatever it is, I think it is not entirely an issue of people who are not able to work, but it's so many things put together.
Are we saying the design of this governance system that we have right now may not necessarily work for the city county of Nairobi? It could work elsewhere in other counties.
No, Nairobi already had a devolved system that functioned much earlier before. Let me just call that devolution. You could actually call it decentralization. But then when it was a council, when it was a commission, Nairobi already gave us how a devolved unit would look like. There's a third layer in our governance structure. If you look at the Urban Areas and Cities Act, that really has been killed. Almost all counties really do not want to empower municipalities. In Nairobi here, we are talking about, they tried to redesign them, of course, and give them some flashy names, calling them boroughs. But are they effective? Do they work? They're not working. So somehow, devolved units did not want to further decentralize service delivery, and we are having a challenge around that. So
would a different entity work, a different system?
No, it's not a matter of system. Number one, let's just talk about commitment. When it comes to leadership, a lot of times it's just a matter of commitment. Somebody just making a decision, because we have got sufficient laws, we've got statutes, we've got policies, and everything that we need to make work. Like I've just told you, that Nairobi has got one of the best master plans. In fact, Mombasa had to come to Nairobi to benchmark, and the people who did the new plan in Nairobi ended up in Mombasa, helping out Mombasa to actually come up with a master plan. A lot of guys are borrowing from us. But somehow you don't see that master plan working here, yet it's databased. Okay. It's literally, and that is one of the most, I don't know how you will talk about publicly participated on document, worked on so well, yet its implementation is by choice.
Its usefulness also comes into question. It may be good on paper, lying somewhere on a shelf, but if at all it doesn't work on the ground,
Fred, let me just,
how useful is it? Time for us to take a break.
Fred, let me tell you, see this, when NMS came in, there was no fresh thinking from NMS. They simply went to the new plan and plucked whatever they wanted. Whatever you saw around there was already in the new plan.
A different entity is able to work to carry out that.
No, a different thinking, not entity. Thinking.
And not the system we have. So
no, a different thinking, not entity.
Time now for us to take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe. When we come back, we talk about the wage bill debate. The National Wage Bill Conference comes to an end today at the Bomas of Kenya. We'll be focusing on that after the break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. We continue with the state of the nation, and today we're privileged to have Arnold Baliba, Strategic Communications Advisor, UDA, Robert Alai, MCA Kileleshwa, and Joyce Wamahio, Economist and Governance Expert. And I want us to move on to, and my intention was to go straight to the wage bill debate, but something I cannot skip this discussion. It features on the front page of the Daily Nation. Why MPs are reluctant to move into swanky office. It is what is on the back page. And this is a new 28-story building that costs taxpayers a lot of money. I think more than 5 billion Kenya shillings to build. MPs were to move into this new building last week. What many people may not know is that MPs had actually built an underpass straight from Parliament buildings to this building that is just across the fence from them for privacy. But now the members are saying that the building is substandard. One of them says they're complaining that the offices are not being finished in a pristine way, as was expected. The floor work is poor, the lighting system is not working, and many things have not been done according to the tender specifications. They also say that the offices are too small. They are squeezed, and there is no privacy. And one wonders, this building, the plan started, I think, in 2009. So the plan has taken more than roughly 15 years to complete this building. Joyce, let's start with you. We've spent money on this building. MPs have watched this building come up. Some of the MPs quoted on this story have been in Parliament for more than a decade now. Surely they would have known if things were not going right. To wait until the very end of this process to complain that things are not right, that they'd rather keep their old offices at KICC and elsewhere, that in itself is a problem. We've asked questions about the role of Parliament in so many things. This is failure on their part as well. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're not wrong, Idemudi. You're not wrong, and at times they're also right. Persons who have visited Times Towers, the KRA Plaza, from the 13th floor, Rift number 4, that's in the floor, have issues of storing. And that have been in existence for 2000, since year 2000. The MPs move in, see this new building that is coming up, and there is the issues that occupants of Times Towers, by then, that was our offices, we had raised those years. So at times it's also good to listen to the voices of the occupants of those offices. On 29th floor of Times Towers, the telephone, there's no poor network whatsoever. The MPs are saying here that from the 21st floor upwards, there's no network. There was a feature that was shown, I think 2 weeks back, by one of the main stations of a very poor workmanship that was going. There was workmanship that was going on. The corridors were squeezed. Mm-hmm. So at times, even the occupants of these offices are telling us in the face that, yes, you are giving us, from the outside, there's a beautiful office, but from inside, we need to deal with issues. I've given you an example of another building that is not related. The MPs are also feeling it that they've not had their say on this, again, new office. Why? They feel it's too squeezed. We need also, as the public, to visit some of these offices and see why they are complaining. I give first-hand experience of the building up, the rising up of offices and how they are inhabitable. I believe that what we saw from last 2 weeks back, if they are going to occupy those offices the way they were, there is a huge problem. Of course, there's the better side of it, because there will be sharing of the secretaries, which bill again will be curtailed. But in terms of the infrastructure itself, I've visited that place. The adjacent building, the offices also have, we've networked. And I tell you, Dimuri, make a visit to that building. You still feel what the MPs are feeling. Personally, I've had the touch.
But these are same members who managed to ensure that an underpass is built. That plan wasn't there initially. They used to cross the road into that area. They ensured that an underpass is built, Bwanalai. In the same breath, they would have known if there were issues of quality, because they're talking about the offices being too small. And these are things they should have picked up a long time ago.
And you know, when we question the capacity of the MCAs to oversight, you need to know that, either it's the national design for us not to be properly oversighting these entities which are working on issues of public interest. There's no way you can have a contractor whose budget was 5.85 billion, revised to 7.1 and eventually paid 9 billion, delivering a substandard good after so many years. After going beyond the deadlines and earning, even his payment, earning an interest fee of 225 million shillings. And the MPs are supposed to oversight other public entities which are even consuming more. Because oversight should not be after the process. Even during, it's continuous. So there's no way you can tell me that the MPs, because I think this person, the contractor behind this, understood the mentalities of our legislators. There's how many Kenyans will get inside that building?
Very few.
Looking at it from outside, it is the perfect building you can ever see anywhere. So the contractor knows he's playing in the court of public galleries. And he knows that the Kenyan public will side with him. Kwamba hao MPs wanataka tu, because you hear offices are not big enough, they're not posh enough.
You're not seeing the inside.
You see, these are just greedy people. They don't want to be contented with enough. You see? But if you get a contractor who is going to deliver, that road was, the road next to the Parliament police station was closed for some time for the underpass to be built. And the MPs cannot tell me that they have been operating, in fact, even from the Continental House for a very long time without realizing what was being brought as a final product there. It is very unfortunate to witness that we expect the over 300 MPs and 67 senators to oversight the national government when they can't even deliver a perfect product for themselves. And I think we are going to face a similar situation in Nairobi, where we are supposed to acquire, we're supposed to build premises for the assembly. Because, the current premises, even the MCS don't have offices, even the house leadership, don't have offices in the platform. So I think we have agreed with the county government, the executive wing, that we will buy a piece of land which belongs to the executive in Upper Hill and build our own assembly premises in Upper Hill to the specification.
In Upper Hill?
Yes, but there was when we got in, some of the assembly leaders wanted to buy Hilton Hotel. And the MCS rose up and said that, how do you buy Hilton Hotel? For what?
It's actually up for sale.
It's up for sale, and they wanted,
the front page of,
they were seriously considering it.
2 billion shillings.
Until
2 billion shillings for that building.
In fact, they agreed with they said the discounted amount was 1.4 billion. Until some of us protested loudly in the presence that you cannot buy a building which doesn't have the sophistication to host an assembly. Because assembly, you need a plenary. Yeah, you need a place where the public can also interact with you, because it's a house of the public. The Hilton, how was Hilton built? That the renovating that premise will cost you a lot of money, and I think that one it was just for deals.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is very challenging, witnessing what you're that back page story, but
the kind of worries we're hearing could actually mean the consequence of it would be that probably they'll have to re-tender for innovations once again, to just change it to the kind of specifications they need. This is the wastage in government to keep talking about.
I think it's not re-tendering, because even the space there, I think these MPs are going to build a new parliament, a new office.
They bring this building down, or a new building altogether.
You might see some. You might see
9 billion shillings later, Bwana Maliba.
Well, the politics around this particular building is a little bit complex. It's a mix of very many things. Number one, I also know for sure that MPs who do not have offices get rent money paid to them, and they have got better posh offices elsewhere. So
at the KICC, for example.
Changing that, then bringing them here, where they're saying the offices are smaller, they don't have the privacy. That also could be an attitude problem. That is one. But I have seen especially the younger MPs complain much longer than when the official getting into this particular bidding happened. I remember specifically those young ones actually complaining that they were the ones who were allocated earlier offices around here, and that the construction, the changes in this particular building is never ending. You are in a building where you are always meeting people going up and down trying to fix one thing or the other. So there's definitely a problem around that. And, for buildings of this particular nature, especially in government, you realize that these problems did not start today. These problems were at planning level. It was at budgeted level when they actually went through. But like Alea has actually asked a question, if these are the people who are supposed to oversight a 4 trillion budget, not able to actually follow through on something that is closer to them, actually, how then you need to ask questions. If they cannot go through a 5 billion project that concerns them and their welfare and how they deliver services, concerns them personally, how well then do they oversight a 4-point-something trillion budget? That then actually is a big question. But I have a very entirely different thinking, that with the expressway right on Uhuru Highway, from a security perspective, I have begun to think that Parliament in the long run, the current location is untenable. In the very long run, with the expressway right over them, the place of Parliament here, because how do you secure this particular premise, especially when you have got the head of state in this particular place? This place has eventually become a little bit of untenable, and not just around whatever this new building looks like, but that particular.
We should be thinking,
and the whole thinking about bringing that particular structure there. Sometimes it's important. Like, let's talk about the Eastleigh Air Base. Do you know that long time ago there used to be an aerodrome in Westlands, where you have initially it was the clerical training school for KDF. Then you call it Kabete Air Base. Now, no plane can land there. Effectively today, the Eastleigh Air Base cannot operate a number of planes, probably just helicopters. A number of fixed-wing planes have actually been moved to JKI on the other side. So as we develop and move around some of these bubbles, we do away with them. Now, the aerodrome around the Eastleigh area, what we call the Eastleigh Air Base, no longer functions. I also it's the same, if you were to apply the same thinking around Parliament, this particular national infrastructure or facility here is in the long run not tenable with the expressway around there. So whatever way you look at it.
Just as well, because even the county assembly is thinking of moving away from the city centre.
But it was built for councillors, and then how many were they? How many were they? It's 8 constituencies with the
It's a rationale of moving the county assembly from the space it's actually attending to a different space.
Actually, but a long time ago, the county assembly was supposed to move to Kasarani. There was land there.
Okay.
At the initial planning, it was supposed to move there.
Interesting. We're just discussing this headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, why MPs are reluctant to move into a swanky office. It's a nice story, makes for a very nice read of the kind of wastage and lack of oversight that goes on in some government undertakings. And this new 28-story office block is now ready for use by members of parliament, but many of them are saying it is substandard. What next? All right, let's now come to the big discussion of the day, and it has to do with the wage bill. The National Wage Bill Conference comes to an end today at the Bomas of Kenya. And I think not many of the dailies have captured that discussion today, but I think one of them has, and that's a Star newspaper. On the front page of the Star, we have this big headline, Wage Bill Crisis, Control of Budget Calls for Hiring Freeze. Yesterday we saw a different headline, still on the same, on one of the papers, I think it was a People Daily, talking about no more pay rise for civil servants. And yes, the understanding is that, yes, the public sector wage bill is actually bloated at about almost 47% of collectible revenue. 1.2 trillion shillings is way too high. And it should come down to about 35% as a percentage of collectible revenue, also as a percentage of GDP. But the question is, from an economic standpoint, Joyce, many would argue if it's an issue of percentages, then probably we should be working harder to ensure that our collectible revenue is actually more, instead of trying to reduce probably the workforce or even cut down on the wage bill, because times have changed. Inflation is not going lower. So why don't we just build a better economy, increase our GDP, increase our revenue collection?
Away from the percentages, Idimuli, it's a different perspective altogether. The Auditor General requests from the county assemblies and the executive to present what you call a clean audited report. Now, from the clean audited report, the counties have devised ways of submitting to the Auditor General what you call modified audit reports.
On human resource or other issues? Yeah.
Holistic. Now, on the modified audit reports, now that's where we have the routine, because on the paper, the 5% is right. But when it comes to the submission now of the quarterly returns or the monthly returns, then the Auditor General allows for what you call the modified audited reports. Now, that is where there's a deliberate effort by the executive or the county assembly now to inflate. Mm-hmm. Why? Mheshimiwa here has his fellow friends who he thinks that they should be fixed in the payroll. Mm-hmm. They are not captured in the clean audited reports. So they will be fixed in the modified audited reports, whereby there will be unaccounted employment records, whereby there will be unaccounted monthly allowances, whereby there will be uncounted payroll discrepancies. So counties have taken advantage of what you call the modified audit reports. And it is the high time the Auditor General dealt with the issues of modified audit reports and restricted herself to what is allowable in the modified audit reports. In the month of, May, coming the month of May, does the county government of Nairobi need to employ the PA to Mheshimiwa here? Yes or no? Because that is where now we have the gaps. That in the month, there will always be requests, can Idimuri get a personal driver? Then those allowances which were not allowed, initially in the audit reports, are now fixed there. Look at what we have in Kitui today. I mean, from the audit report, 75% of the revenues going to deal with the salaries and emolument. Mm-hmm. It is an abuse of system, because the Auditor General should have captured those modifications of the audit reports so that you eliminate clauses whereby they will be abused. The issues of inflated and unauthorized allowances. That today I do not want to drive my car, I'll be given car allowances. Yet the car will leave the premises of the National Assembly to bring Mheshimiwa to the premises of the TV47. Yet he was given the car allowance. Mm. Are you getting it? So it is not the issue of the percentage, it is the issue of the human resource in the office of the Auditor General restricting what should be in the modified reports. Okay. Yes.
Wanala, it is true that to a huge extent, and I think we mentioned it as we were talking about what's happening in Nairobi, that even the county has been reduced to an employment bureau. The governor is simply paying salaries and attending to pending bills, nothing else. A bloated workforce does not necessarily relate or translate into better service delivery. Do you agree that that is a situation, especially in county governments?
Employment in the county has been a very thorny issue, it's a very political issue, because we always say that even the governor find it hard to sack anybody in the county, because everybody was brought in by somebody, either previous mayor, the MPs, the senators. This Nairobi is where you have a mix. Even the president calls in to bring in the relatives, and every cabinet minister sees an opportunity, because you have 15,000. The governor funded them, I think 14,000. He has increased them to beyond 15,000. And when he got in, the first motion he moved was to reduce the workforce based on retirement, early retirement. He was offering them an opportunity to retire early. But nobody wants to leave the city early. In fact,
everyone just wants to stay.
People want to overstay, because it is a place for proper deal making. So the employment in the city has been very thorny. I know the There are issues of ghost workers, but not only ghost workers, but even fictitious payments. When you pay some emoluments from the executive, and they go from, let's say you're paying for retreats, you find that the payments which are being said that 200 people are supposed to attend this retreat, you might find there are only 60 or 70 people attending. The other money is going into the pockets of people. That's why you saw in the current audit reports saying that 15 employees were paid through a single bank account. Mm-hmm. You know, you could see what was happening there, that it was basically somebody getting money for, and they were paid a lot of money. So employment in the city is very tricky because it's running down from the whole governance structure we have in this country. Everybody has brought in somebody at the county. Usually we found a lot of faults at the park in the management of the county, and when we brought it to the assembly, kila mtu alikuwa anauliza kwa nini unaguza jamii yetu? Kwa nini unaguza jamii yetu? So it is not about professionalism, it's not about skills, it's not about do we need this and that skill, but it's about, you know, okay, watu wetu wako covered, you know, like now they believe that we have a lawyer governor, so probably the lawyers would also want to be properly represented in this government, in the county more than other communities, and it's a whole messy structure.
And the question that arises is whether or not we are having the proper conversation, especially as in at the national wage bill conference. But that we'll get Bwana Maliba to answer that question after the break. You're still watching Morning Cafe. At the Bomas of Kenya, and I'm still in studio with Robert Alai, Joyce Omahiu, and Arnold Maliba. And Maliba, we wanted to come to you now. Listening to Bwana Alai giving a description of the workforce and how issues are, especially in the human resource management among county governments, and we're using Nairobi as just an example. This is across all counties and even in central government. And one wonders if we're having the correct or right discussion at Bomas of Kenya, because now we're talking about freezing hiring and freezing pay rise and allowances hikes for public servants. These are issues already contained in the reports by the Auditor General, the control of budget. We know, and from this table alone, people understand where the problem is. But is that the conversation we're having at the Bomas of Kenya? We just trying to papasa maneno?
I think, first of all, I've looked at the conversations at Bomas, and I think partly justified, but also far removed from the practicality. Of course, we have got about, let me estimate, roughly going to about 1 million people employed by government at all levels. Those people consume about 1 trillion shillings, closer to that. We collect, actually should be in excess of a trillion, because it should be around 51%. If you talk about the entirety, I'm talking about the entire numbers, and we are collecting slightly above 2 trillion. So when about 1 million people are consuming 50% of what we contribute, definitely there is a reason to worry. There is a reason to ask, how is that actually working out? Do we really need a big government as we do have today? Does it mean that if you have got a bigger government, you have got more service delivery? The truth is, that's not entirely true. You've got places. You looked at the numbers by COG yesterday on how doctors have grown. You can actually tell that there's been an increase, of course, in the number of medics hired from 2013 to date. You then can compare how service delivery has actually changed, of course. You can see that to that particular end. But there's also then the other aspect where it's a little bit reactionary. Anyone who's worked in government, and unfortunately, or fortunately, all of these guys have actually had a chance there. You can bring in somebody, you pay that particular person a little amount. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. But the reason why a lot of people accept to work within the bureaucracy at what officially is lower pay is because they know they will pay themselves.
Through other means.
They end up paying themselves through other means. So it's time, and that's why I insist that it's time, if we were talking about rationalization of staff, we should also look at market rates, so that if we pay at market rate, then we expect so much of you. Otherwise, then how do you expect a lie to be going around Kileleshwa, fighting with some very influential people, foreigners who have got so much money, people who are putting up multi-billion buildings and stuff, and then you are not paying him even his security, even his own life, and his life purpose. Let's talk about his life purpose. You'll be wondering, as in, who was I born for this? My parents at home, my relatives and everybody else are wondering, to what end? So if we want so much out of them, we should also pay them at market rate. Of course, there are cadres where that is actually done. But I will tell you, in some of these counties and a lot of government offices, there are people, for political reasons, for people to actually be politically correct, you end up paying people lower. Sometimes to bring in more people, you are saying, we need so many people. You need from this tribe, you need from that tribe. So you try rationalize around, run with job groups that really don't make sense. When these guys get in there, their core business is to pay themselves better.
Yes.
So they don't really care about the real service delivery. So it's not service delivery.
Looking at those numbers, 15,000 plus for City Hall alone, as an example,
For a county
the numbers could actually be
yes. For a county of 4.5 million people at night, and now about 6 million people during the day. There is almost 1.5 million people who come to Nairobi every day in the morning, and they go back in the evening. So when you have got, you can actually just compare how many people, what is the acceptable service ratio. I still feel 15,000 might not be.
It's not way off.
But it's not way off. But the challenge is, are they even delivering?
Yes, because a bloated workforce does not necessarily mean that service delivery. But are we able to bite the bullet and say, okay, fine, it's time to cut down on the numbers within the public service? Because that should be the logical conversation. I remember the days of President Moi when there was a golden handshake where you had to cut down the number of people in the civil service. After that, we've not had any such conversation, and the numbers have kept on growing, or probably we'd say in tandem with the population growth. But if at all it is no longer tenable to have these numbers, do you think it's possible for us just to bite the bullet and say, okay, fine, it is time to slash on the numbers within the public service sector?
You'll be decrying and depriving the taxpayers if you decide to deal with the numbers, the word numbers. But here we should be addressing the issue of service delivery vis-a-vis the numbers. Because in essence, as what Mariba has said, the number of persons living in the Nairobi County vis-a-vis the number of employees, 15,000 with 6 million, actually that is a drop of water in the sea. In essence, we should have, look at the ratio that is prescribed for the doctors or for the police, for the purposes of the UN. Those are the figures that we should be dealing with, that Nairobi should have about about 30,000 30,000 employees of the county.
So we need
but
more.
that should be in terms of the service delivery. What the governor here should be, or in essence, the leadership of the holistic leadership of any institution should deal with the service, the wide service delivery vis-a-vis the number of employees that have been sent. Look at what's happening today in KRA. Why are taxes not? Why are targets not being met? Because there's a freeze in employment.
But only last year we saw a hiring of 1,500 new officers at KRA.
Idimuri, it was a knee-jerk reaction. Why? To train as a tax administrator, you need 2 years. Yet what Anthony Moura brought in was 9 months of training. In essence, paramilitary training, not tax correction. So in terms of tax correctors, there have been no employment of tax correctors. These are tax enforcers who are sent actually out there. Go and ask Arai why he has not prescribed star 222 hash. But in essence, tax correction or service delivery is not about the gadget. It is about a holistic issue for us to deal with the targets. What do we want to achieve as the county government of Nairobi? We want to make sure that the towns are clean. So what do we have? We should have several doctors in place, several tractors and garbage trucks to deal with that service. So in essence, Nancy and Margaret should have been dealing with issues of the service delivery, not the issues of emoluments, because emoluments to me are still low. Look at the doctors, the discussion, the hot potato on the table today, or even in terms of the executive, is the doctor's emolument. 200,006 down to 70,000. Perhaps the president is feeling the hitch and saying, yes, you need 206. But this government, in terms of service delivery, we can only manage. So in essence, people should be dealing with, leadership should be dealing with the service delivery, not the numbers. To me, I feel the numbers we have here is way below. We are restricting the revenue to the counties. We are restricting the revenues to the ministers, the MDAs. But in essence, in terms of service delivery, we need a huger scope. So we should holistically address the issue of the service delivery, not the emoluments. The employees are feeling the heat. Today, for the purposes of Arai here, he should be receiving 10,000 per week for airtime. And perhaps the county is not giving 10,000 for airtime. He needs to call ABCD. Even you as the tax corrector, you need to check compliance. You need to see whether taxes have been corrected. Yet, you are giving that employee 1,000 for airtime. And that 1,000 for airtime, yet you are going to deduct 30%. Okay. So in essence, you see, you are giving me a salary of 10,000, but in essence, what you expect from me as the deliverer of that service, is a slap in the face. And
the question, therefore, is will the kind of measures that they're proposing lead us to that, Bonalai? Because yesterday they talked about freezing any pay hikes for the public service. We're talking about a situation where the cost of living is going high. People are asking for more money, for more value for what they actually deliver. Now they're talking about also freezing the hiring. Do you agree that probably we've gotten to a point where we no longer need any more people?
No, I don't think that we can ever freeze the hiring of our employees in this country. We cannot also freeze pay hike, because you know the law is very clear on increase of allocation for emoluments, and also you need to because of the cost of life is rising. When it rises, you need to adjust the wages upwards. The other thing is the freeze of hiring. How will you do it? Well, there's instances of death, the people resigning, people retiring, you definitely need to fill those gaps. I don't think that the issues we are discussing are tenable. We need to properly conduct a wage audit of the employment sector. We see, but we also need to automate. People fear AI, but I think that automation is the only way to go. We need to sometimes automate some of the functions which humans are performing now. In the Nairobi City County, we have been fighting. The reason why we have 15,000 employees And I don't agree with her that we need to have more. We need to have less. We need to have less than 10,000 because a lot of functions are still manual. The most complicated system you have at the Nairobi City County is Excel sheet. The Nairobi City County does not even have an ERP system. Today, if you wake up and go to the governor and ask him, how many vehicles do you have? He will not tell you. If you go to the governor and ask him that where in this city do you experience crime, and it is by which kind of people, in which demographics, and targeting which kind of people, he will not give you, because there is no integrated security management system. We don't have an integrated transport management system. We'll be having less employees. Nairobi should be mean and lean and efficient, which it is not now, because we feel that every issue, you see the issues of environmental management. We took a lot of people with brooms and poured them on the streets. It provides for us, politicians, is a good avenue to provide employment. But is it effective? If you go
it's not working, looking at the photos here.
If you go to the big cities, Lisbon, you are in London, you see the big trucks with the brooms which are cleaning the streets. A truck which can clean the streets in 20 minutes, the whole of streets in Nairobi. You're spending days doing something which is not effective, because even the brooms are not strong enough. You need a much more powerful broom to sometimes remove the cogs in the city. The drainages, now the bigger chunks is the cross culverts. Some of them have been blocked over the edges, by the waste we throw about, by the bottles, the plastic and so on. I think that the city needs proper automations and management, especially on the wage. We need to reduce the number.
Do you support the idea for a single public sector payroll? We've seen what has worked, Bwana Maliba, especially with the single pay bill for all government services. Yes, some hurdles here and there, but streamlining and putting everything into one box. Now, do you think that having a centralized payroll for everyone in the public sector could actually help us resolve the issues of ghost workers and these other double payments and such?
First of all, it's constitutionally not possible, because we have in the Constitution independence of offices, so that's not going to work. If you're going to have a single payroll for everybody else, it means you're going to manage counties, you're going to manage independent offices, and that is not an area you're going to actually, as in the Constitution, that's an area you cannot. Separation of powers, that you will not be able to touch. Do I think it will solve problems? Not entirely. Some of the biggest payrolls that you can actually go to are actually full of ghost workers. Like Nairobi, for example, should be, ordinarily Nairobi has got once, let's say, for purposes of theory and argument, that they have got one payroll, right? Just 15,000, not very many people. But we're talking about ghost workers. I remember in Kisii where the governor forced everybody, okay, you say you are a driver, stand next to the car you drive. And there were lots of them.
Without cars.
Without cars. There are even some of them who are abroad. As in you are abroad, but locally you are being paid as a driver. So whatever way you look at, having a single payroll might not really solve the problems we have. What we have largely is bad manners. And when I talk about bad manners, you will start with corruption, where everybody's looking at public service as an avenue to get money. And this is not just about the people we elect. A lot of times we love to demonize the people we elect and the people in power, but it's a societal problem. Once you get into office, your own people, including those who elected you, tell you that now if you don't use this to become richer, you might not be able to win the next election.
My concern is we are having this conference, a 3-day conference, that is coming up with such solutions.
That's what I wanted to speak to.
Freeze hiring, stop pay hikes, and then we're saying those ones cannot work.
Allow me to actually speak to that. Number one, freezing hiring, I think it's a simplistic thinking. Because for what has actually been said here, labor mobility is a thing that is actually a reality in that particular space. So people will die,
Yes.
People will move on, people keep on changing, the people are retiring and everything else. So this is simplistic generally. Secondly, you are not able to pull this if you look at the quality of legislation. I actually speak that there is need to raise the level of legislation. And I say that because if you look at the bills in the House, a lot of them are job building bills. I have mentioned this before, that there is something called the Mang Bill, the Mang Bin Bill that is actually coming in the House. Mang Bin is just the swanky word for Ndengu. So there is a Ndengu Bill in the House. When you work around that, somebody is going to come up with an authority to oversee that. That authority is an opportunity to employ. So then tomorrow, other people from Mount Kenya will actually think, okay, Njahe is a very serious thing. So they will come up with a Njahe bill. And then you also want an authority. Njahe authority. Then tomorrow we from the West will be talking about we are tired being under AFA. We also want to break away and go back to have a sugar board. Now we want a maize board. We will keep on doing these things. So the level of legislation is a little bit problematic. I've even seen the agricultural extension bill. I take a lot of times to go through the bills in assemblies. If you look at the agricultural extension bill, it's being done by a senator, yes, of course, from our own party. But you realize that that is actually going to put us in conflict with the counties already, because it's picking services that exist. So you find everybody, there's this desire to put their names on bills.
Yes, yes.
But what are they doing? They are picking existing functions, then rephrasing them and putting them out there as if they are new. I've seen Senator Sige and Senator Mayaka's bill on, they call it the startup bill. A lot of what they're trying to heal can actually be done by fixing the existing framework. It's just a matter of retweaking the bureaucracy to serve. But what are we doing? We're going to come up with another authority to deal with that. So you come up with an authority to deal with the startups. We did the same thing with the National Employment Authority, which essentially, there was a department already existing to do that. So we picked functions across board, then came up and of course gave it a parastatal. I want to give you a good example. Why do you think the meteorological department has remained a department in the ministry when in all reality, it should be a parastatal, for example. It's running fairly well, it's serving the country. But in other jurisdictions, if we were to have the kind of thinking that informed having the National Employment Authority. So when we talk about freezing here, you are talking about you freeze hiring, but Parliament is churning out new authorities and parastatals and stuff.
But it is headed by individuals.
It defeats the purpose.
So the same, again, speaks to the issue I spoke to earlier about reducing pay and everything else. The Employment Act 2007 is a bombshell. That one, you don't step into that. You are not going to take away people's emoluments. You're not going to cut down on people's salaries. And somehow we end up, if you look at the cost of some of these proposals, is that people take you to court as a country. You know, a lot of times we don't feel that.
Or they go on strike.
So you, as individuals, sometimes we don't see the impact. And I use a very good example. I said, you know, you pay MCAs the money you want to give them and say, okay, they're not doing so much and everything else. But these people are oversighting a person with billions.
Yes.
Okay.
I can tell you 100%, he might not be very bold here to say it, but he's said it in so many ways. But you cannot give me, I have got a car loan, probably a mortgage, and whatever you're paying me, now we've frozen. These guys cannot go to trips easily. It's not easy for them to go for trips. So how do you think they're making money? Yet, mwananchi, so long as you actually have tried to run for office, or you are in office, how will those people realistically oversight this particular individual, like I've said, who gets a single bribe in millions of shillings? Okay. And just that alone probably could be, one bribe is an MCA's salary for a whole year. And that salary already has got commitments.
Joyce, you'll be the first one to go as we wind up. I'll give you about 3 minutes to wind up. When it comes to this issue of wage bill, clearly there's a disconnect between what we're discussing at the national level, and this is a national conference, 3-day conference. It must have cost quite some amount, yet we all here say that none of those proposals there is actually tenable. What is the solution going forward? Yes, according to the president, we cannot sustain the current wage bill as it is. Something has to change. But when a national conference fails to address the real issues, then where do we turn to? We're talking about this at a time when doctors are on the streets, people are dying. Actually, the headline on the front page of the Taifa Leo says, "Mochari zimejaa. Mgomo, mochari zimefurika." Labor Day is in 2 weeks' time. It's curious that we're having this discussion about wage bill at this time, but what's the way forward as you wind up?
Thank you, Demuri. Nancy and Margaret were dealing with HR issues.
And when you talk about Nancy and Margaret, you're talking about the control of budget and the Auditor General.
Sorry. They were dealing with the issues of HR. Here, the real discussion should have been revenue generation. A country will grow, the GDP of any country will go because of revenue generation. Have production of services and products. Have companies that are producing products so that they can sell. Have a neighboring environment so that services can be outsourced or sold. So that we have, in our pockets, we have money. In our pockets, we have income. So that this income now can be channeled to the different departments now, so that we can address the issues of revenue, of emoluments. When we do not deal with the real issue, even to the executive, the president of this Republic of Kenya, deal with the factors of production of products and services, so that you increase the flow of income and monies in people's pockets. When you deal with only one department of the HR in terms of growth, the holistic growth, then you are getting it wrong. These conferences are there because we need the books of the control of budgets and the Auditor General, they need to close their books. But in essence, what are we trying to achieve? We will not achieve anything because what they are literally addressing are not workables. Freeze the employment of employees, yet 2 or 3 have died last week. So we need to fill those gaps. So in essence, let us address the creation of income. This country, the leadership of Kenya Kwanza government, and I'm happy Mariba is here, let it deal with services and products. Once we have the services and products, let them not deal with the issues of debt. Let them deal with how we are going to grow services of the products and services. Japan today, US today, have about, US has about $700 and something billion in terms of debt, yet it's the highest the economy. Why? They are producing services and products. Kenya should not deal with only the issues of debt. It should not deal with the issues of human resource. Let us change the line of discussion from the issues of the employment. Let us come back to the real issues. Are we producing enough products and services? Yes or no? If we are not producing enough services and products, let us have a number of those situations so that we can produce more of products and services. If we produce more of products and services, then we are going to sell. If we sell, then the income from the county government will increase. The incomes, the revenues, the deliverables to the other state organs will go. Look at the budget that we have for the for the budget, the finance bill 2024. Apparently, it's not achievable because we are not we are not addressing the issues of production. We are not dealing with the issues of service delivery. Let us deal with those issues in Dimuri.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Bonalai, 75% of some county expenditure goes towards salaries and wages.
I think.
Do you think this conference is addressing any of that?
I think the conference is just another way of getting people to come, more people, because you find the governors and all these employees from far-flung counties are coming there to attend with their aides, and a lot of government, it's a waste of money, if you ask me. I also think that we are focusing on the wrong things. We turn government to become an employment bureau. The government becomes probably the biggest. You see, even the media is struggling when the government withdraws advertising. We need to build the private sector to be the employer. Like, we used to say during the campaigns that the government only has positions for 700,000 people. The country has enough people who needs employment. There's no way the government will absorb everyone. So we must focus on enabling the young people, the people who have the capacity to build their businesses, to be able to employ others. And that is the way to increase employment in the country. The fact that we are walking around and discussing employments, it means that as a nation, we have not put our act together. I don't think that it's fair for Kenyans, for counties to be paying, 75% of their payments going to personal emoluments, or recurrent expenditure. It is very sad. Sometimes reading those reports, then you see the politicians have been the key factor. The key factor in all this is the politicians. I think that we need to automate. I saw one thing which in the Muli I want to comment on is the move by Njuguna Ndung'u to instruct the counties, to use integrated payment management. KRA itself, the national government has never used an integrated revenue collection system. They have depended on e-citizen, which is built by webmasters and PesaFlow and all these characters around here. There's no way they are going to subscribe a system for us to use, because we know that the system, what they are looking for is ways of connecting fictitious accounts into those systems and ensuring that this money goes into private hands.
Okay.
And I think that they need to give the counties autonomy which they need. But anything they want to do, they have to put laws in place and regulations in place to ensure that public money is not wasted or doesn't go to private hands.
Okay, thank you. Live finally, Maliba.
Number one, I think in rationalization of the wage bill, it's of course a mix of very many approaches and interventions. What I would ask SRC and the people organizing the conference is that they should stop being reactionary and being populist in the way they are putting out proposals. We've been around here pushing for the 35% mark on revenue. You realize we've not achieved that because no one sat down and did a quantitative valuation of the constitution on how you implement it before you make some of these proposals. So it's good, but you see SRC should be much more of on the management side as opposed to them actually appearing to be activistic. Because you give people work, people should be paid for what they do, and also in some spaces where they actually frequent. So a lot of times you realize that they focus on the wrong things. Like you're going to look at somebody's qualification going to be elected. We are the people who came up with the Constitution 2010 and we voted for it, almost 67% of us. We came up with a way on how you actually arrive on the leadership. So when you waste a lot of time talking about people just need birth certificates to get into parliament, you are losing the role of what, can you quantify representation?
Yes.
It's difficult to quantify the concept of representation. How do you put it? Legislation you will do, but you say the first function of a member of parliament or MCA or whatever it is. So if we wanted it any other way, we will do that. So those are smaller aspects that they should work around and try to help us move forward. Secondly, UDA has got elections coming up, and of course there's a lot of stories left, right, and center. But I know grassroots elections are very difficult. They are not an easy thing to go by. 2 counties, of course, we had hoped we would actually do them much earlier, but Isiolo and Garissa, we've moved them backwards because of preparation. But as a party, of course, we are focused on ensuring that we get done with grassroots elections by August, so that then probably later in the year or earlier next year we can do national elections. But then you cannot do grassroots elections next year, just a year to an election. It's not very doable. A difficult thing, but of course we are committed to that end. When you see the president actually going out and bringing the best of his weapons, when you bring Maura down to work, where he's not doing anything else, you know that the president means business, and we will actually have the grassroots elections. Well, whatever the challenges that comes with it, that will happen. Okay. But there is something on our table that we've really not given justice to this morning, I think because we've discussed it every morning until now, we think it's so common. The strike by the medics. First of all, I know this doesn't make a lot of people
You have about 30 seconds or so.
Yeah. A lot of them happy, but we should actually say it as it is. The only people who are on the streets legally, because we are a country of the rule of law, are clinicians and probably the technologists. But for the doctors, there is a court order against that. So for them, they simply are absconding duty. But I don't want to get into the technicalities and the legalities of that. Okay. What I really want to call upon them is to return to the table of negotiation. Every war, leave alone an industrial action, even battles are won in battle rooms.
Okay.
So whatever happens, I want to ask Davji and his team to consider coming back on the table.
Okay.
I know that the government actually has forget whatever is said elsewhere, but I can tell you, the government is ready and waiting to talk to them. The CBA that was signed in 2017 is a difficult one to implement.
Okay.
Over and above, they should remember their essential service providers.
Okay.
Them going to the streets is not the same as the teachers will do.
Asante sana, Arnold. Arnold Maliba, Strategic Communications Advisor, UDA. Robert Alai, MC Kileleshwa, and Joyce Wamahio, economist and governance expert, our panelists this morning on State of the Nation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time at TV47 this morning. Now, cases of political intolerance, chaos, and downright violence appear to be re-emerging at an alarming rate. A worrying trend that is not only unacceptable, but also sets a dangerous tone for the state of governance. 2 incidents have caught our attention this week. Curiously, both of them in Murang'a County. In one, rival members of the county assembly yesterday engaged in a fist fight and even destroyed public property after they disagreed over the election of some county officials. In the second incident, supporters of two female MPs clashed violently and disrupted a meeting attended by 3 cabinet secretaries, forcing a halt to the activities of the day. It is a shame that we are now seeing female elected leaders being part of this hooliganism. It is wrong for elected leaders entrusted with the responsibility of representing the interests of their constituents to resort to physical violence as a means of resolving differences. It makes a mockery of the title of honorable bestowed upon them. The essence of democracy lies in the peaceful resolution of conflicts through dialogue, debate, and compromise. However, the recent events in Murang'a demonstrate a blatant disregard for these principles. Instead of engaging in constructive discourse and objective debate, politicians have chosen to descend